You're being played. Every single day, in every interaction, someone is calculating their next move while you're playing by rules that don't exist. The promotion you deserved went to someone less qualified. The respect you've earned gets dismissed. The influence you should have remains just out of reach. But what if I told you that 500 years ago, a disgraced Italian diplomat wrote the blueprint for navigating exactly these situations? Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write the prince for Renaissance rulers alone. He wrote it for anyone who refuses to be a victim of other people's ambitions. Today, we're going to explore how his strategic principles can transform your approach to modern power dynamics, helping you gain genuine respect and influence without compromising your integrity. When most people hear Machiavellian, they think manipulation and cruelty. That's Hollywood fiction. True Machiavellian thinking is about strategic awareness, understanding that every interaction has underlying power dynamics, and choosing to engage with them consciously rather than naively. Consider this. You're in a meeting where your colleague takes credit for your idea. The naive response is to feel hurt and hope someone notices the injustice. The Machiavellian response is to immediately recognize this as a power play and respond strategically. You might say, "Thanks for building on the framework I outlined last week. Let's develop it further." You've reasserted ownership while appearing collaborative. The three pillars of modern strategic thinking. First, calculated decision-making. Every choice you make sends a signal. Machiavelli understood that perception often matters more than reality. This doesn't mean being fake. It means being intentional. When you consistently make decisions based on their strategic value rather than immediate emotions, people begin to see you as someone who thinks several moves ahead. Second, situational awareness. Machiavelli wrote about reading the nature of the times. In modern terms, this means understanding the unspoken rules of your environment. Different contexts require different approaches. The strategy that works in a startup won't work in a corporate hierarchy. The approach that succeeds with your peers might fail with your superiors. Third, controlled vulnerability. Counterintuitively, showing strategic weakness can be a form of strength. Machiavelli understood that appearing too perfect or untouchable makes people want to challenge you. Sometimes, revealing a calculated vulnerability, admitting you don't know something, asking for help, creates connection and reduces threat perception. 5 core strategies for everyday power. Strategy 1. The art of strategic patience. Machiavelli emphasized that timing is everything. In our instant gratification world, this principle is more powerful than ever. While others rush to react, you observe and plan. Here's how this looks in practice. Your boss announces a major project with an impossible deadline. Everyone immediately starts voicing concerns or diving into solutions. You wait. You ask one strategic question that reveals you've thought deeper about the implications than anyone else. Suddenly, you're not just another voice in the room, you're the person who sees what others miss. This isn't about being slow to act. It's about being quick to think and strategic about when to reveal your thoughts. The person who speaks last in a meeting often has the most influence because they've heard everyone else's position first. Strategy 2. Building calculated alliances. Machiavelli wrote extensively about alliances, but not the kind most people think about. Strategic alliances aren't about finding people you like. They're about finding people whose success serves your goals and whose goals you can genuinely support. In the modern workplace, this might mean identifying someone in another department who's working on a project that could complement yours. Instead of waiting for a formal collaboration, you proactively offer resources or insights that help them succeed. When they succeed, they remember who helped them get there. The key is authenticity within strategy. You're not manipulating people, you're creating genuine win situations. The most powerful alliances happen when both parties benefit clearly and immediately. Strategy 3. Controlled information sharing. Information is currency, and how you spend it determines your influence. Machiavelli understood that knowledge shared strategically creates more power than knowledge hoarded selfishly. Let's say you discover your company is planning layoffs. The naive approach is either to panic and tell everyone, or to keep it completely secret. The strategic approach is to carefully consider who needs to know, when they need to know it, and how sharing this information serves everyone's interests. You might quietly suggest to valuable colleagues that they update their portfolios or strengthen their performance documentation. You're not betraying confidences. You're using information responsibly to protect people you value while positioning yourself as someone who looks out for others. Strategy 4. The power of strategic unpredictability. Machiavelli wrote about keeping your enemies uncertain of your capabilities and intentions. In modern contexts, this doesn't mean creating chaos. It means maintaining strategic flexibility. If you always respond to challenges the same way, people learn to predict and counter your moves. But if you sometimes compete directly, sometimes collaborate, sometimes step back entirely, you keep people slightly off balance in a way that increases respect. This might mean occasionally taking on a project outside your expertise to show range, or sometimes declining opportunities that everyone expects you to pursue. The goal isn't to confuse people, but to prevent them from taking your responses for granted. Strategy 5. Mastering the long game. Perhaps Machiavelli's most important insight was that sustainable power comes from playing for long-term positioning rather than short-term wins. Every interaction is part of a larger pattern you're creating in how people perceive and respond to you. This means sometimes accepting a smaller, immediate gain to position yourself for a larger future opportunity. It means building a reputation for reliability even when it's inconvenient. It means investing in relationships before you need them and supporting others' success even when there's no immediate payoff. Practical applications in different contexts. In professional environments, the modern workplace is full of unspoken power dynamics that naive approaches ignore. When you're passed over for a promotion, the Machiavellian response isn't to complain about fairness. It's to analyze what factors actually influence the decision and position yourself better next time. This might mean building stronger relationships with decision makers, documenting your contributions more effectively, or developing skills that make you indispensable. It means understanding that competence alone isn't enough. Visibility and strategic positioning matter equally. In personal relationships. Machiavellian principles apply to personal relationships too, but not in the manipulative way people assume. Strategic thinking in relationships means understanding that healthy dynamics require conscious effort and clear boundaries. When someone consistently takes advantage of your generosity, the naive response is to either enable it or explode in frustration. The strategic response is to calmly adjust your behavior in ways that encourage better treatment. You're not manipulating. You're creating conditions where mutual respect is more likely to develop. In social situations, social dynamics often involve subtle power plays that most people navigate unconsciously. Strategic awareness means recognizing these patterns and choosing your responses deliberately. When someone tries to diminish you in a group setting, you don't need to engage in direct conflict. A simple redirect, that's an interesting perspective, John. Sarah, what's your take on this? Shifts attention away from the attack while demonstrating your comfort with the situation. The ethical framework. Power without corruption. Maintaining your moral center. The biggest misconception about Machiavellian thinking is that it requires abandoning your values. In reality, strategic thinking is most powerful when it serves your authentic goals and principles. The question isn't whether to engage with power dynamics. They exist whether you acknowledge them or not. The question is whether you'll engage consciously and ethically. Your values should guide your strategic decisions, not be abandoned for them. If your goal is to create positive change in your organization, Machiavellian principles help you navigate the politics necessary to make that change happen. If your goal is to build genuinely supportive relationships, strategic thinking helps you create conditions where those relationships can thrive. The difference between influence and manipulation. Influence involves creating situations where people choose to support your goals because they align with their own interests or values. Manipulation involves deceiving people about your intentions or the consequences of their choices. When you use strategic thinking to help a colleague succeed while advancing your own projects, that's influence. When you withhold information that would help them make better decisions for their own interests, that's manipulation. The line isn't always clear, but the intention matters. Advanced techniques for long-term success. Reading situational dynamics. Every environment has its own power structure and unspoken rules. Successful strategic thinking requires quickly identifying these patterns and adapting your approach accordingly. In hierarchical organizations, direct challenges to authority rarely succeed, but well-positioned suggestions often do. In collaborative environments, being too strategic can backfire if people value authenticity over effectiveness. The key is matching your approach to the context. Building your strategic network. Machiavelli understood that sustainable power comes from networks, not individual strength. In modern terms, this means cultivating relationships across different levels and departments, not just within your immediate sphere. This doesn't mean using people, it means creating genuine value for a diverse group of connections so that when opportunities arise, you're top of mind. The most successful people aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who've built the strongest networks of mutual support. Timing your moves. Strategic timing isn't about waiting for perfect conditions. It's about recognizing when conditions favor your particular approach. Sometimes the best time to assert yourself is when others are distracted by crisis. Sometimes the best time to collaborate is when competition is high. Learning to read these rhythms takes practice, but it's perhaps the most valuable skill you can develop. The same action taken at different times can have completely different results. Implementing your strategic approach, starting small. Daily practices. Begin implementing these principles in low-stakes situations. Practice strategic patience in routine meetings. Experiment with information sharing in casual conversations. Build alliances around small projects before attempting larger collaborations. The goal is to develop your strategic instincts gradually so that when significant opportunities or challenges arise, you can respond from a place of practiced wisdom rather than reactive emotion. Measuring your progress. Track your progress not just by immediate outcomes, but by how people's responses to you change over time. Are colleagues seeking your input more often? Are you being included in important conversations? Are people beginning to see you as someone who thinks strategically rather than just reacts? These shifts in perception often precede formal recognition or advancement, and they indicate that your strategic approach is working. Adapting and evolving. The most important lesson from Machiavelli is that effective strategy requires constant adaptation. What works in one situation or time period may not work in another. The principles remain consistent, but their application must evolve with changing circumstances. Stay curious about how power dynamics shift around you. Continue studying successful people in your field, not just for their obvious talents, but for their strategic choices, most importantly. Remain authentic to your values while becoming more sophisticated in how you pursue them. The long-term vision, sustainable influence. True Machiavellian success isn't about winning individual battles. It's about positioning yourself as someone whose success serves others' interests as well as your own. When people see you as strategic but trustworthy, influential but not threatening, you've achieved something far more valuable than short-term victory. This approach takes patience and consistent effort, but it builds compound returns over time. Each strategic decision reinforces your reputation as someone who thinks carefully and acts wisely. Each alliance strengthens your network of mutual support. Each success makes the next opportunity more likely. The goal isn't to become ruthlessly calculating, but to become strategically conscious. You're not abandoning your humanity. You're applying human wisdom to navigate complex social realities more effectively. In a world where naive good intentions often get trampled by calculated self-interest, strategic thinking becomes not just an advantage, but a responsibility. When you understand how power works, you can use that understanding to create better outcomes for everyone involved. Machiavelli's insights remain relevant because human nature hasn't changed. People still respond to strategic thinking, still respect calculated competence, and still prefer to align themselves with those who understand how to navigate complex situations successfully. The choice isn't whether to engage with these dynamics. They're already shaping your life, whether you acknowledge them or not. The choice is whether you'll engage consciously and skillfully, or continue to wonder why others seem to advance while you remain stuck despite your best efforts. Master these principles, and you'll find that respect, influence, and success aren't mysterious forces beyond your control. They're natural results of thinking strategically about how you engage with the world around you.